Of the UK-India Free Trade Agreement in July 2025 has been presented to the public as a triumph of openness, partnership, and mutual prosperity. Ministers seek and speak of growth. Business leaders praise opportunity. Headlines fixate on tariff reductions and headline numbers. Yet, beneath the ceremonial language, the optimistic forecast lies a more revealing reality. This agreement is not primarily about free trade in the classic sense, it's about leverage, structural asymmetry, and the reconfiguration of power in a world where economic gravity is more is moving eastwards and legacy powers are learning to negotiate from relative weakness. To understand the agreement properly, fix one must first abandon the illusion that trade deals are neutral instruments. Trade agreements are not technocratic exercises designed to maximize efficiency. They are political documents forged under the condition of unequal bargaining power, shaped by domestic constraint and aimed at embedding advantage over time. The UK India FTA is no exception. It's a deal born out of necessity on one side and strategic patience on the other. For the United Kingdom, this agreement reflects a deep structural problem. Britain today is a service dominated industry economy with declining industrial depth, weak productivity growth, and limited room for autonomous economic maneuver. Brexit didn't create this reality, but it exposed it. Cut off from frictionless access to the European single market, the UK has been forced to search for alternative growth anchors. Yet the world it is re entering is not the liberal open trading floor of the 1990s. It is a fragmented, protectionist, strategically competitive environment in which access is rationed, leveraged, which matters more than ideology. In this context, India represents one of the few remaining large markets that is growing rapidly and not yet fully locked into a rival geopolitical bloc. With a population exceeding 1.4 billion, rising middle class consumption, expanding industrial capacity, and an increasingly confident state, India is not merely another trade partner, it is the future pole of the global economy. For the UK, securing privileged access to India is not optional, it is essential. The FTA is therefore best understood as Britain attempting to anchor itself to India's growth trajectory in order to remain relevant in a world where its relative economic weight is declining. However, this agreement forms a very different position. Unlike the UK, India is not seeking relevance, it is consolidating it. India's approach to trade has never been doctrinally liberal. It is pragmatic, selective, and deeply informed by historical experience. The Indian state understands that premature openness can hollow out domestic industries, lock economies into subordinate positions, and entrench dependency. As a result, India doesn't open markets indiscriminately. It opens them conditionally, gradually, and in ways that preserve long term control. The UK India FTA reflects this philosophy with remarkable clarity. While the agreement reduces tariffs and improves market access, it does so asymmetrically and over extended timelines. Sensitive sectors remain protected. Quotas, rules of origins, regulatory frameworks ensure that liberalization doesn't undermine domestic champions. In effect, India grants access without surrendering sovereignty. This is not free trade as ideology, it is managed openness as strategy. Nowhere is this more evident than in sectoral structure of the deal. Much of the public discussion has focused on visible goods such as Scotch whisky, automobiles, and consumer products. These make for compelling headlines, but they are not core of the agreement. The real substance lies elsewhere, purely in finance, professional services, standard, and institutionalized embedding. The United Kingdom enduring competitive advantage lies not in manufacturing scale but in financial infrastructure, legal systems, regulatory expertise, and services that sit at the apex of global capitalism. Banks such as HSBC and Standard Chartered, consulting firms, insurance providers, and fintech platforms do not merely facilitate trade, they shape it. They determine how capital flows, how risk is priced, how contracts are enforced, and how systems interlock. By improving access for UK financial and professional services into India, the FTA allows Britain to embed itself into the architecture of India's growth rather than merely export products into it. This is a form of power that is invincible but deeply consequential. When financial systems, standards, and advisory services become entrenched, they may generate dependency that is difficult to reverse. Switching costs rise, habitats form, decision making process aligns with critical expertise. In this sense, the real objective of UK is not to sell more goods, but to secure a position within India's economic nervous system. India, however, is acutely aware of this dynamic. It welcomes capital, expertise, technology, but it does so with an insistence on domestic capacity building and long term autonomy. Standards alignment in aerospace, for example, facilitates cooperation and integration, but it also enables India to absorb knowledge and gradually increase capabilities. What appears as dependency in the short term can become leverage in the long term if managed carefully. India's state capacity and demographic scale gives it time to play this game. The automotive sector illustrates the same logic. While the agreement allows for reduced tariffs on UK vehicles, this access is tightly managed. Tariff rate quotas, phase restrictions, safeguards ensure that domestic manufacturers are not overwhelmed. India doesn't expose core industrial sectors to foreign competition without protection. It calibrates exposure to ensure learning without destruction. The UK gains entry, but only under conditions set by India. This much celebrated reductions in tariffs on the Scotch whisky and other foods and drink products further demonstrate the performative dimension of trade politics. These concessions matter symbolically and commercially, but they do not reshape the balance of power. They generate headlines, reassure domestic constituencies, and create a narrative of success, yet they remain peripheral to the deeper structural dynamics of the agreement. Whiskey doesn't determine who controls capital, technology, or production networks. It is loud symbol with limited leverage. Small and medium-sized enterprises are often invoked as beneficiaries for free trade agreements, and the UK-India FTA includes provision explicitly aimed at SMEs. Yet this too requires sober assessments. International trade is unforgiving. Compliance cost, compliances, regulatory complexity, logistics, and scale requirements filter participants ruthlessly. For a small minority of high capable farms, the agreement may indeed open new pathways, but for the majority, it will remain aspirational. Trade deals do not democratize opportunity, they amplify existing capacity. Weak farms are not empowered by access, they are exposed by it. At a deeper level, the UK India FTA reflects a broader transformation in the global order. The post Cold War era of liberal globalization assumed that openness would spread prosperity and convergence would follow. That assumption has collapsed. What has replaced it is a world of strategic trade, selective integration, and power conscious negotiations. States no longer open markets because theory demands it, they open them because it serves national strategy. In this world, asymmetry matters more than rhetoric. The UK brings capital, enterprise, institutional sophistication. India brings population, production potential, and time. Capital can move quickly, but it is impatient. Population endures, adapts, and compounds over generations. Money rents, people persists. Over the long run, this distinction shapes leverage. The UK India FTA therefore should not be judged by short term trade volumes or optimistic projections. It should be understood as a snapshot of a transitional moment. Britain is repositioning itself within a multipolar world, seeking to compensate for lost regional integration by embedding itself in emerging centers of growth. India is consolidating its ascent, using access to external resources to accelerate development while retaining strategic control. Neither side is naive, neither side is acting out of sentiment. This agreement is not a romance, it is transactional, conducted under unequal trajectories. The UK seeks relevance, India seeks capacity. Both hedge against an unstable global system dominated by US China rivalry. Yet, the long term balance of advantage rests with the actor that can absorb, adapt, and outlast. Trade agreements do not create power, they reveal it. They reward those who possess scale, discipline, and state capacity. The UK India Free Trade Agreement is no exception. It is less a triumph of free trade than a lesson in modern political economy. Access is not control, openness is not surrender, and growth follows structures, not slogans. In the end, the most important question is not who signed the agreement or what tariffs were reduced. It is who will shape the systems that persist after the ceremonies fade. On that question, the answer will not be found in press releases but in slow, deliberate accumulation of capability. This is where true trade actually resides.